All right, it's fight day, baby. And everyone should be pumped up because I'm pumped up right now. And I'm excited about this fight. Everyone should be. So let's talk about 83 pounds because that seems to be what everybody is talking about this morning. And it's what everyone was talking about yesterday, right after the weigh-in. So let's look behind that number of 283 pounds. And I want to tell everybody and urge everybody to check out a video. I think it was Boxing Social. I'm going to put a link to this video in the description box after I finish this video. And it's with David Caldwell. And he's talking about how Andrew Ruiz looked during fight week, during the open workouts. What's up, everybody in the chat? And he's talking about how he looked during the open workouts. And even the commentators during the open workout, and Eddie Hearn himself was saying how good Andrew Ruiz looked. Looked like he wasn't even puffing hard. His hands looked fast. He looked sharper. But one interesting thing that David Caldwell said, that I said yesterday, and I have been saying all along, and I think this is basically a smokescreen. I think this is all psychological warfare by Team Ruiz's team to give the impression to Team Joshua that he is out of shape, give them that false sense of security, because why else would he step on the scale with the sombrero on, fully clothed, cell phone in his pocket? And why would he eat a big meal before the weigh-in? Why would he probably pounded tons of water? And David Caldwell said all these things. He said, you know, all week I've been looking at this guy. He's been looking fit. He's actually been looking tighter than he like less soft, less jelly-like in the midsection all week while he's been watching this guy train and watching this guy walk around. So people look at that 283 and the impression is all of a sudden that the guy didn't train for the fight. And again, aesthetics, more often than not, is not always an indication of conditioning. It's not an indication of skills. It's not an indication of effectiveness for any type of athletic events. Because you look at bodybuilders, physique athletes, when they step on that stage, and they're totally dehydrated. They probably look the best they've ever looked, but ask them how they feel. Ask them to perform an athletic event in that condition. So to sit there and assume that Andrew Ruiz is already out of shape and he's going to be worse for this fight just because of that number. Don't look at the number. Look at the guy's body. All week everyone was saying that he actually looked leaner. I remember last week doing the podcast, I made a bet with one of the callers that he would not be under 260 pounds. And people were saying, oh, he's going to come in at 245, 250. And everyone said his face looked thinner and this and that. And I said, listen, there's no way this guy comes in lighter for this fight than he did in the first fight. And I was right. So, again, you know, people talk about 283. But again, it is quite possible that he did put on some muscle mass for this fight. I mean, the other fight was 6 months away. I'm not saying he put a shitload of muscle on, but what I'm saying is he stepped on the scale fully clothed, probably with something in his pocket. He probably had the phone in his pocket, shoes on, sombrero. He probably had about 7 or 8 pounds of clothes on, and with stuff in his pockets. And he probably just finished eating a big meal, and he probably just finished drinking a lot of fluids. So basically what most fighters do after they weigh in, he did it before he weighed in. So he started his carb up process before he stepped on the scale, whereas most fighters do it afterwards. Time difference, it was 5 o'clock to weigh in as opposed to being in between 1 and 3 like it normally is. The guy said, you know what, I got a big fight tomorrow. I might as well get myself nourished and start the process early. He's a heavyweight. He doesn't have to make weight. It's a big deal. Okay? Does that mean that he didn't train for the fight? Does that mean that he went and gorged himself? No. He's a heavyweight. He doesn't have to make weight. Okay? What's more troubling to me is Joshua's weight. A guy who everyone said looked visibly smaller all week. People that were speculating that he was 10 to 12 pounds lighter. People were saying that he probably lost some muscle mass along the way. It's never a good thing when you lose muscle mass, guys. It's never a good thing when you lose muscle mass. I mean, if you're an athlete, and you perform better at a higher weight, then what's the sense of losing weight just because of the perception of being lighter means you're faster and you have better stamina? Not if you drained yourself to make the weight. Not if you're fighting at a weight that's unnatural for you. Not if you're fighting at a weight that's uncomfortable for you. Now, if you're trying to convince yourself psychologically that you're a better fighter at 236 than you are at 247, then that's all placebo. But physiologically, if you are losing muscle mass and you drained yourself, ask any fighter if he weighed in and was not allowed to rehydrate and fight at his walk-around weight or his rehydrated weight the night of the fight, would he perform better? So if Jared Hurd, who walks around at 170 and weighs in at 154, was told, well, you can only put on 5 pounds and you have to step in the ring at 159 pounds, will he be faster? Will he be quicker? Will he be more effective? So I think Joshua was basically convincing himself, the lighter I'm going to be, the more stamina I'm going to have, and the more explosiveness, or the more speed I'm going to have, excuse me. But it's not going to improve your defense, your reflexes, your hand speed, and this could also hinder you because, again, you could be depleted. You could come out flat because you lost too much muscle, okay? So Andy Ruiz being 283, which I think was probably closer to 274, 275-ish is the real weight. Him putting on realistically and literally 7 or 8 pounds, I don't think that makes much of a difference because I'm going to ask you a question right now. Andy Ruiz weighed 254 for his fight with Joseph Parker, which was arguably his second best performance of his career in his second biggest fight of his career. He weighed 255 pounds for that fight. And in the AJ fight, he weighed 268. So he was 13 pounds heavier for AJ than he was for Joseph Parker. What fight did he look better in? What fight was a more impressive performance? What fight did he exhibit more power in? He knocked Anthony Joshua down 4 times. 4 times. And he was knocked down once, and he was hit with another big right hand after he got up. And the added weight helped him with his punch resistance. So ask yourself this. Was the 255-pound version of Ruiz in the Parker fight better than the 268-pound version that he was for the Joshua fight? So again, putting on 7 or 8 pounds, which is what I really think he put on, is that going to hinder him? Is that going to make his hand slower? Well, everyone that was watching him train all week and looked at the open workouts, David Caldwell included, said that he actually looked sharper, faster, and looked better than he did in June. And people are saying that he looked the same weight-wise or even lighter. So let's go by how he looks and how he feels as opposed to the number. Why are we focusing on the number 283? Why is that such a big deal? Now, on the other hand, you can say, well, Pete, why are you focusing on the number with Joshua? Because I think the number with Joshua tells a different story. I think it tells the story of a guy who drained himself to hit a certain number just because he set a target weight for himself, thinking that if I'm at this target weight, then I'm going to be better. And there's no scientific evidence to prove that. There's actually scientific evidence to prove against that. Because how many times do we hear fighters say, I was weight drained for this fight. I wasn't myself. I need to move up in weight. So this guy's a heavyweight who doesn't have to make weight, and he essentially fought like a fighter who has to make weight. Stripped down to his underwear, took all his clothes off, because he wanted psychologically to say to himself, if I'm at this 237-pound number, then that's half the battle. I'm going to be a better fighter just because of a number on a scale. And again, we put too much into numbers as fighters. We put too much into numbers with fighters as boxing fans. We put too much into numbers. We look at punch stats instead of looking at the type of punches that are being landed. We think, oh, we're just going to count them, and the guy that lands more is going to be more effective, which is bullshit. And again, people think that muscle weighs more than fat. It doesn't weigh more than fat. But 10 pounds of muscle takes up less space than 10 pounds of fat on a physique. So just look at it like this. 10 pounds of fat is about the size of a softball, where 10 pounds of muscle is about the size of a tennis ball. Okay? So you take that 10 pounds of fat, you could fit 2 10-pound tennis balls in there, and you'll actually be 10 pounds heavier, but you'll look probably lighter because you'll be leaner and you'll look harder, and you won't have that soft, jelly-like look to you, that smooth look to you. Just like when guys lose a lot of weight and they get ripped up, people say, and they look muscular, people say, oh, did you put on some weight? You look really big, you look muscular. No, I just lost the fat and the muscle is showing now. So that's the difference, guys. So if everyone's sitting there saying all week that he looks the same or he looks lighter, and some people are saying that he looked physically, he looked like he was leaner, then why are we focusing on that 283-pound number? I asked Eric a question yesterday. I said, before he stepped on that scale, would you have guessed that he would have weighed 283 pounds? And he said, no, I would have guessed that he weighed the same that he did in the first fight. So why not just go by the look? Why not just go by how he looks training? Why not just go by the perception of how he feels? If he doesn't look like he's drained, he doesn't look tired. Joshua was doing interviews and doing press conferences, and people were leaving comments at the bottom of the video saying, Joshua looks like he hasn't slept. He looks tired. He looks drained. He looks flat. He looks depleted. So if Joshua did get down to 236, 237 pounds, and he looked great, and he looked he looked like vitalized and exuberant, and he just looked like there's a lot of pep in his step, I'd be like, okay, that's great for him. But to me, it looks like he overtrained. He depleted himself to make that weight. Whereas Andrew Ruiz said, fuck this, I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to be comfortable. Now, the timing and the schedule's off. So obviously the meal timing is going to be off too. So he's probably got all his meals in, like he said he did. He got breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and he probably drank a lot of water. And even Barry Hearn said, we don't know if he jugged a whole bunch of water before he stepped on the scale. Again, this is all psychological warfare. He wants people like Anthony Joshua and his team to think that he's out of shape. He wants that because he wants Anthony Joshua to have that false sense of security. Let me just tell you something right here, guys. The mind game started the minute Andrew Ruiz went in Eddie Hearn's DMs last May or June, whatever, probably last May, when he went in Eddie Hearn's DMs and said, I want this fight. That's when the mind game started. And Andrew Ruiz has been playing mind games with Anthony Joshua ever since then. And he's still playing mind games with Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua said to him at one of the press conferences at the end of it, said, how do I beat you? Basically, so you already know he's in Anthony Joshua's head. There's no question about that. You already know he's in Anthony Joshua's head. So I think that this 283 is a big smokescreen. I think there's a lot of false outrage about it. There's no Buster Douglas syndrome here. This is just a guy who went on a scale fully clothed, with a hat on, with heavy sweatpants on, and probably had about 7 or 8 pounds of clothes on him. Probably ate 3 big meals to recover and get himself ready and get all his nutritional requirements in for the fight. And he probably started that process a little earlier than he normally would, because again the weigh-in was at 5 instead of 1 or 2 like it normally is. So that's where I think we come to the 283, and I don't think it's a big deal. Is he heavier than 268? Probably, undoubtedly. but is he really really 15 pounds? Like if he went to bed and woke up in the morning and we weighed him right after he woke up with his underwear on, I would guess he weighs about 273, 275 pounds, somewhere in between that range. So you can argue he's about 7 or 8 pounds. You can argue he's about 7 or 8 pounds heavier than he was for the last fight. Is that outrageous? I mean, he was 13 pounds heavier for Joshua than he was for Parker. He was 6 pounds heavier for Joshua than he was for Dimitrenko. So, for the best performance of his career, he was heavy. He was 268 pounds. So, he wakes up this morning and weighs 273 pounds, 275 pounds. And it's not shit weight, it's not fat weight, and it's possibly some muscle and a lot of water, then should we be alarmed here? That's all I'm saying. Again, I would be more alarmed at the guy who walks around at probably 255 pounds, okay, and he got down to about 237, and he probably had some meals in him too, and he had his shoes on too, so you could argue that he was probably 235. Eddie Hearn indicated that he was around 234, 235, okay? So he essentially lost 20 pounds of his natural walk-around weight, okay? The guy that probably walks around at 255, weight as high as 254 for Takum. This guy lost 20 pounds, and he was already lean. He's already a lean guy normally. He's a guy that has a lot of muscle mass. So you're not going to tell me he didn't deplete himself to lose 20 pounds here. You're not going to tell me that a great deal of that wasn't a lot of muscle mass, okay? Andy Ruiz is a functional 283 or a functional 275. He's a functional 275. Okay? Same thing with Gerald Miller. Gerald Miller weighs 280, sometimes 290, 300. He still throws a shitload of punches. He still looks the same regardless of how heavy he is. Now, if there's evidence to suggest that if Ruiz fights poorer when he's heavier, which we have no evidence to suggest that his hands are slow when he's heavy. We have no evidence to suggest that he has no stamina when he's heavy. We have no evidence to suggest that his defense is worse when he's heavier. But we do have a lot of evidence to suggest that Anthony Joshua generally has been blowing guys out his whole career, regardless of any weight that he's been at. And you can argue the Joseph Parker fight went the distance, but he had to turn into an aggressive fighter in the second half of that fight, because when he was boxing Parker the first half, he wasn't really doing well. Parker was actually winning rounds early in that fight, and he was having some success because Joshua was laying back too much. And then once Joshua took it to Parker, Parker kind of went into a defensive shell. He outfought Parker. He didn't outbox Parker. He outfought him in the second half of the fight and won that fight with effective aggressiveness. And he tried to knock Parker up, but Parker is too good defensively, and he went into a defensive shell, and he couldn't knock Parker out. So he didn't try to outbox Parker. He tried to knock him out in the second half of that fight. Let's be honest, let's be real. So now he's going to go into this fight trying to outbox the better boxer in Andy Ruiz. The odds are against him. Now, if the fight goes the distance, could there be some dodgy scorecards in his favor? Yeah. But I'm not looking for this fight to go the distance. I think an overtrained, depleted Anthony Joshua will have some problems in the second half of this fight, because Andy Ruiz will have some success going downstairs to the body. I'm looking for Andy Ruiz to throw his jab at Anthony Joshua's chest, underneath his armpits. He's going to constantly touch Anthony Joshua to disrupt him, not allow him to get set. He's going to blanket him with pressure, blanket him with volume, and Joshua is going to wither and wear down and get taken apart, and he's going to get stopped in 9 rounds. So that 283 is not going to hurt Andy Ruiz. It's probably going to help him in the pocket, make him more of a force, more of a presence on the inside, and it's going to be harder for a lighter Joshua, a less muscular Joshua, a less explosive Joshua to hold Andy Ruiz off, because Joshua never had a clinch game. He never had a clinch game. Every time someone got in his chest, he tried to fight them off him. And that was his problem. So instinctively, when things get hot and heavy in there in the pocket, he's going to go back to his old, to what he knows, and he's going to try and fight Ruiz off. And if you're going to go punch for somebody in the pocket, the guy who has the faster hands, the guy who has more bullets in the chamber, is going to unload the clip on you, and you're going to be on the short end of that exchange. So this 283 pounds, I think, is all a smokescreen. Everyone's getting all outraged about it, Buster Douglas syndrome. But it's a functional 283 pounds, and I'm suspecting that a lot of that was clothes yesterday, a lot of that was water, and some of it was muscle. I wouldn't be surprised if there was 2 pounds of added muscle to that, 2 or 3 pounds of added muscle to that weight, judging by what people have been saying and judging by my eyes. Everyone said, oh, he looks the same, oh, he looks lighter, oh, he looks leaner, he's probably 20 pounds lighter. And now, all of a sudden, when he stepped on the scale, it says 283, everyone's like, oh, wow, he's fat now. Which one is it, guys? Go by what your eyes told you before he stepped on the scale. Okay? It's not what the scale says, it's how you look and how you feel. That's what it's about. Okay? You don't get down to 250 pounds just for the sake of getting down to 250 pounds because you think you're going to be better. You either are better or you're not better. Now again, it still remains to be seen. It still remains to be seen if Joshua will be better at this 237 pounds. But I'm going by empirical data. I'm going by science. I'm going by physiology. That's what I'm going by. And if you tell me that if you physically drain a fighter and force a fighter to lose a significant amount of muscle mass, and then he goes into an athletic event, is he going to be better when he was forced to lose muscle mass, functional muscle mass? If history has never shown us that a guy that does that will come out better on the other end. De La Hoya, Antonio Tarver, Roy Jones, Miguel Cotto, the Pacquiao fight. All these fighters that had to lose weight to be better. So let me, guys, ask you a question. If Paul Williams or Antonio Margarito, when they were fighting, got down to 140 pounds, would they be faster at 140 than they were at 154 because they're lighter? Would they have better conditioning? No. Not if they depleted themselves, which I think Joshua did. I think Joshua depleted himself and convinced himself that if I'm under 240 pounds when I step on that scale, automatically I'm going to be faster and I'm going to be a better condition, have more stamina going into this rematch. And I think he made a mistake. I think he's wrong. I think the science tells us he's wrong. And it's hard to go against science and logic. That's my opinion. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to go against science and logic. So I think he did a lot more volume training here. I think he did a lot more cardio. I think he did a lot more rounds of sparring in the gym. I think he ate significantly less food in this fight, or the training camp for this fight, excuse me, to get down to a number that, it's a placebo number in my opinion. It's just a number, basically, that he says, okay, automatically, if I can hit this number, then that's half the battle, and I've achieved my goal, and I'm going to be a better fighter because of this number. Look at all the fighters that in history that have depleted themselves and ended up becoming worse after losing weight than they did gaining weight. Especially a guy who's 30 years old, who has very low body fat, a guy who's going to naturally get bigger as he gets older, not smaller. But he's fighting against his frame, he's fighting against his body's homeostasis, he's fighting against his body's natural course of action. He's fighting against nature. He's fighting against nature, essentially, just so he can hit a number and say, hey, I'm better because I'm at this number. It's not the case, guys. It's not the case. All right? We're going to be going live in a couple hours. I cannot wait. I hope all you guys join us. Me and Eric are going to be doing the live casts at I think 3:30, between 3:30 and 4 o'clock. We're going to be going live. So make sure you join us. And we're going to be scoring this fight live. And can't wait, guys. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Till next time, Beat is out. I'll talk to y'all soon. And make sure you join us later at about 3:30, quarter to 4. Peace out, baby. Have a good day, everyone.